let's go straight into lecture. We have lots of different things to talk about tonight, but guys, it's getting exciting because you guys you're going to start making little web pages now. This is cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about the terminal, we're going to talk about HTML, and we're going to do a little bit of introduction to Git from the beginning of chapter 22. Let's see, here we go. So I'm going to do announcements, then I will lecture on all three of those topics, and then we'll do the studio, and then we'll come back and I will kind of go through the studio a little bit with you guys. Mostly just to kind of show you more about DevTools. Okay, so graded assignment number 3 is due in 1 week. It's due Monday the 14th. If you missed it, we had a live tutorial on Saturday that several of you attended. Appreciate that, to have a little bit of a live audience. That was cool. But the video is up there. It's not in the same playlist as the lectures and reviews. It's on a different playlist, but it's on the same channel. And the code that goes with it, the starter code and all that. And those are also linked in my document of practice exercises. So if you have not started on this assignment, you need to get on it because it's going to take you some time. It's a big one. Catch-up class is this Thursday. I will not be here, but you will because attendance is required. First, you're going to go to the main Zoom room because TA Terrence is going, and I think I spelled that wrong, is going to lecture. And then after that, you'll go to your Zoom and spend the rest of the time being able to get some one-on-one help from your TAs. All right, so let's talk about the terminal. Hopefully you guys were able to get this set up and play around with it a little bit, but we're going to just talk about, why would you use a command line interface, how you go about using a terminal. There's more than one way to do it, and some basic commands. And then I'm going to kind of demonstrate some of that for you. So why use a CLI? Because, we're not in the 80s anymore, right? We're not using DOS. We don't have to just do things with text. We have these beautiful, graphic user interfaces, and you can click on things, you can use a mouse, and it's wonderful, right? There are actually lots of reasons. And I will tell you, I use CLI all the time. And I'm a front-end engineer. If back-end engineers really use the CLI all the time. In tech, there are so many things that are easier to install, run, or manage from the CLI. You can install software and dependencies using package managers like NPM, Homebrew, Yarn, etc. You can manage your version control. We're going to talk about that tonight, about Git. And run JavaScript files with Node. You can run entire web applications with frameworks like Angular and React and Svelte. And Vue, just to name a few of the most popular ones, and many, many other things. But I'm trying to click on this and why are you not going? There we go. So to use a terminal, one way is to go through your operating system, right? It'll have a built-in terminal for you to use. I use a Mac, so I've got a picture here of where it is in the other folder in the amongst all of the other apps, and a little example of what that looks like. And I've got mine set up. It's fancy with color and stuff. You guys can do that if you want to. It's fun. You'll have to look up how to do it for your particular type of terminal, but ask me about that if you want to know more. And then, right. Oh yeah, and if you're in this works on the Mac anyway. If you're in the terminal, you can use Command T to open another tab and have several tabs at the same time. If you want to kind of work in, several different directories or do different things. Or you can open it from inside an IDE like VS Code. So I've got an example of that. And I'm going to demonstrate both of those for you in a minute. To open it in VS Code, my favorite is Command J because I'm already typing and it's just faster. And I can toggle back and forth between it taking up space over my code and then not taking up space over my code. But you can also open it from the menu. I think there's actually like 3 ways to do it. So some of the basic commands that you'll want to get familiar and comfortable with are listed in your book. And I actually just copied that because it's super useful to have that little table there. But I'll kind of just go through them. CD will help you change locations to a new directory, and LS will list the contents of the current directory. If you use CD without a file name, it just takes you back to the root, but you have to put a file name after it, or I'm sorry, a directory name, that should say directory name, to move, forward. But you can also, I'm going to demonstrate kind of how to move back and forth between directories. Don't worry, I'll show you. I don't have a bullet point for everything. All right, touch creates a new file, while mkdir, which I have heard some people say mkdir, but mkdir is make directory. That'll create a new directory for you. You can use rm to very carefully delete files, just make sure you're sure. And you can make a copy of a file with CP, or you can move it to a new location with MV. And these are the syntax for that is shown over here in these examples, where like with CP, you have a source path and you have a target path. And that, of course, could be you're in the same place and you just want to have a different name of the file. Then it would just be the file names. Okay. If you want to run programs, you can do that. You can actually run any JavaScript program using Node. And you would just use the command node and then file name, and that'll execute it. And I went too far. So that was my last bullet point. Okay, so let's let me get my terminal up here, and we're going to do a little bit of messing around with just the basic terminal. And I kind of have this thing going on. I'm going to put it there so it's a little darker. Although I'm realizing I might need to amp up the size a little bit. Is that more readable? You guys read that okay? Yeah? All right. So I had some examples here where I but I'm just going to clear it. If you want to kind of just have a fresh start, you can clear it. But actually, if you scroll up, it's all still right there, but just, makes it where you've got more nice, clean space. And I am currently in a directory called LC101 or lecture slide PDFs. And yes, Brad.
Oh, I was just going to ask, is there an easy way to copy and paste from the terminal? Because I keep using Control-C and Control-V, and it is infuriating.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can use your mouse to like grab text and paste it into a file or something like that, but no.
That's what I was afraid of. Thank you.
Yeah. There's strengths and weaknesses to this. And so what my goal is to show you what the strengths are, the things that you do use it for, and kind of, just to the point where you can get comfortable just moving around a little bit. Because here's the thing about the terminal. Even somebody like me who used my dad's Tandy in 1982 or 1983 with DOS when I was a super, super little kid, I look at this and I go, oh my gosh, I'm staring into the void and the void is staring back. Like, you're just like, what do I do? Right? It's just a big black screen. So you have to overcome that. But part of that comes with just getting familiar with these commands and feeling more confident about it.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Ian, you got a quick question?
What's the difference between Node.js and just JavaScript?
Node is what compiles and executes the JavaScript. JavaScript is the language.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. I'm in this directory. I'm going to hit CD to go back to root. And if I do this, you can now see like all of my folders. I've got, career, screenshots, taxes, and then I have a launch code folder. So I'm going to go into that. Now, you might have noticed what I just did. I did LAU and then I hit tab. So you can do this to actually quickly get to the next directory. And if I go from there and I do a little ls, I can kind of see all my folders in there. And then I say, okay, I want to go into my, LC101 folder. That's the one I'm using for you guys. And notice because I created these not in the terminal and I put spaces in them. So it puts that backslash in there to escape that space. But that's why I use the tab, is because sometimes it would be annoying to type that, right? So I can do that. We can look at here. You can see my different directories that I've got in here. If I go back, I can actually do that all at once. And I can say, you know, I want to do LC1, oops. And if I make a mistake, it says, oh, hey, here are your two options. And then you can see what your options are. Okay. And then I can go straight from there to, you know, lecture, and it gives me the lecture and the escaped space, but it doesn't know whether I want lecture examples or lecture slide PDFs. If I hit tab again, then it shows me what my options are. And then I can say, oh yeah, I wanted to go into lecture slides. And so, you know, there we go. I actually am regretting having used examples with the spaces in there, because I know it's harder to read. So sorry about that. But if I list this now, you can see that I've got, you know, all the different PDFs of all of the slides that I've created for you guys that I have uploaded. And this is where I keep them on my local machine. Okay. So if I wanted to, for example, you know, move one of these files back, I could, or actually, let's do this. So if you do see, I just want to show you, if you want to go back one directory, you can just do CD ... and that'll take you backwards. So you see now that I'm back in LC101 2022, and I can, you know, list to prove it. If I want to go back two directories, I can just keep doing like that, you know, ... / ... and that'll move me backwards. And now I'm back at my root. So let's see, I could go into my screenshots folder and list that, and there's like a billion files. So let's say I want to, let's say I want to copy one of these files. Why don't we just choose that, you know, step1.png. I'll, I think I remember what those are from. They're from a demo I didn't lift off. Okay, so CD, no. I want to copy, and I'm going to take step 1, and it wants me to choose which one. So there we go. And I'm going to say I want to call it step 1, just with, you know, without the thing, and I'll name it. And now if I list, you can see that the file is there and I've copied it. If I want to remove it, I can do that. And if I list, it's gone. I want to go back and see if there were any other things I wanted to demonstrate from this list. Yeah, we pretty much did it. I mean, I could have created a new file, and I can do the yeah, PWD. Okay, so your current working directory, if you don't have something set up like I do where it's telling me where I am, you can do PWE, and it'll tell you what the path is. So if I was to go back to root and do that again, it tells me I'm in user/CRJ. That's the root on a Mac. It'll be different for you if you're on Windows. But that's the basics of that. So then the other thing I wanted to show you, and I think I have to go grab this from, hold on a second. Come on, it's being tricky. Okay. All right, so I've got a couple of examples here, and I have opened these in VS Code, which is a really great IDE that's great, especially for front-end development. I use it for just about everything. And in this case, you can see by right here, I've got lecture examples, this folder open. And inside that, I have, you know, a class 1 file, and then I also have a directory called class 12, and inside that I have 2 files. So we're going to look at this first one, geometry calcs. And you can actually already see I was playing around with this earlier. So if I have this file and it has, you know, some stuff in it that will actually print to the console so we can see evidence of it running. But, you know, I've got some, you know, variables, and I've got some functions, and then I've got these, you know, things that are going to basically just give us results from that. So I can just type node and then, you know, class12.js and run it, and it says, oh, because I'm in the wrong folder. Apparently. What? Oh, yes. Okay, so I have to go into class 12 because I forgot I moved them. So this is a good example of how you move around. So I was in the parent folder and I needed to actually be in class 12 because that's where the file is. So if I want to run it from here, I can. And now it still says I can't find it because I changed the name. Right. Sorry, guys. So the file is named Geometry Calcs. I'm just going to clear this. The file is named Geometry Calcs, and I am in lecture examples / class 12. That's a directory that I'm in. And so from here, I can say node and then do Geometry Calcs. And if I hit tab, it just finishes it for me and go. And there you have it. That's what I was trying to do. Okay. That's what I get for changing my file names. Okay. So that's a good example of how to use a terminal. And like I said before, I really like Command J, which I think probably is Control J for Windows, because I can move back and forth with this really easily. And then I still have the full height for my code, which when you're working with hundreds of lines of code, and when you have like a really big function and you need to kind of look at it all at once, matters. You don't want to take up all of your space. And then other times I might want to sit here and like make this super tall because I have a bunch of stuff in the readout that I need to look at. But you can move that around and then, make it come and go like that with Command J. So that's pretty much it. I encourage you to get into a terminal and go into a safe folder where you're not going to screw up anything that already exists on your computer. And just play around with some of this and definitely do a better job than I did. Wow. Okay. I got to get back to here and get back to. All right. So let's talk about HTML. This is the fun part. What is HTML? We'll talk about the structure and syntax and some common tags, and then we're going to do a little exercise. Okay, so hypertext markup language, that's what HTML stands for. It's one of the markup languages out there. All web pages are ultimately defined with HTML. And I say ultimately because when you use frameworks like Angular and Svelte and React, you may not use the same, you definitely don't use the same syntax. It has its own special syntax that you're using, and then it compiles everything and converts it ultimately into HTML. And basic HTML, which I actually learned the original HTML when it was in its infancy back in 1995. And there wasn't even tables back then. I mean, it was super simple. And so we're going to kind of stick to some of that. I'm going to teach you some of the simple stuff, but I'm also going to teach you some newer things too that are very common. But it allows you to organize your content. And to a certain extent informs layout, but CSS really does the heavy lifting on that these days. So when we have a regular lecture again a week from now, we will be talking about CSS, and then I'll be able to kind of demonstrate what I mean by that. An HTML file should have the extension .html. The home page is always index.html. So a lot of these little practice things that you do, you're just going to do them in an index HTML file. It makes it easy. Sometimes you won't, but that's usually pretty easy. A URL is the full address of a website, but you don't usually see the file name on the homepage. And the reason for that is because, www.mywebsite.com is equivalent to that /index.html. They're the same thing. So index.html might be the home page of any directory, but you don't actually have to type it in. It's kind of the default page. Okay, so with that broader knowledge, let's talk about the structure and syntax. Elements, tags, and attributes. An element is a section of content that's defined by HTML. And you use pairs of tags to define an element. There are occasionally situations where you don't have a pair. You have what's called a self-closing tag, but just about everything will have pairs, and that most of the things we'll model tonight will have pairs. The opening tag looks like tag with the greater than less than signs around it. And the corresponding closing tag looks just like it, except it has a slash in front of whatever the name of the tag is. An attribute is something that goes inside a tag and it provides additional information about the content. So in this example, you can see that we've got the basic structure of an HTML page or an HTML file. And there's an attribute in there on the HTML tag that says, lang equals en, which means, the language is set to English for this page by default. You don't need to have that. It's something that just automatically came up when I did something in VS Code. And so, but yeah, so those are kind of that's the terminology that I'll be using a lot. You'll hear me talk about elements, tags, opening tags, closing tags, and attributes. All HTML files must have an HTML element, and it has to enclose the head and body. Those are the main structures of any HTML file. There can be lots of other things inside of head besides a title. And you'll learn that as you go. I'm not going to worry about it tonight. We're going to focus on the content of the body tonight. So again, everything in red there, those are the opening and closing tags. In orange up there at top on line 2 is the attribute, and in green is the value. Okay, so you can actually, and this is something that's not in your chapter, I don't think, but it is something that you need to know to do graded assignment 4. So I'm going to talk about some of these kind of sectioning elements. Header is usually used for the major bar across the top of a page. Sometimes that contains a nav menu, and there's tags for that too. The footer is usually the bar across the bottom, often has the small print things like, contact info, legal notices, copyright, parts of the website that are technical and that they aren't important enough for them to put it in the main menu at the top or whatever. You might see tags like section and article. Those are generally used for like grouping a bunch of other content. If the information inside is all related, like semantically related. So an article specifically would be something that could stand alone. Like somebody could actually take all of the content inside the article tags and plop it down anywhere and it would stand on its own. It doesn't need any sort of context. But section is more general, so you can kind of use it, but it still would assume that everything in that section is related information. But if you don't have something like that, anything else or anything smaller, you would just use a div, the division tag. And that's very helpful for separating content out for layout purposes, if you need, or styling purposes. If you need a block of text that's going to go over on the left that maybe has like a list of bullet points, and then on the right side, you have another div that might hold like an image and a caption, and you can like, put them side by side. You'll see divs for things like that. Okay. And this appears to be a duplicate of the other one. What's going on? I don't know. I clicked and something else happened, but let's go. So common tags. Again, pulled this straight from the book because it's a good list. Bold, emphasis, which is basically italics. Hyperlink is A. You'll get some practice with this for creating a clickable link to another page. Image is something that helps you define an image, and then there are some attributes like SRC for source, that's the link to the image, it's a file itself, and then some other things that you can attach to that. BR is used for a single line break if you just need to make sure something ends up on the next line. P is for paragraphs, commonly will enclose, a section of text and allow you to kind of, separate that out and style it maybe a certain way. Span, it says section. I want to be clear here about what span really is useful for. You wouldn't probably actually use it for like a massive section of text in the way that the section tag is that I just had on the previous slide. You would use it more for like a situation where you just need to wrap some small section of text just to maybe style it different. Like, for example, let's say in the middle of a paragraph, you want to make a couple of words bold. Well, you could just enclose those with the B tag because that would make them bold, right? But let's say you actually had like a group of text and you not only wanted to make it bold, you also wanted to give it some additional styling, like you want it to be green instead of black, or you want it to, be a different font or something. You could use span as a way to not break the text up like paragraph does, where it'll force it down to the next line, and just span that content just to give it a little bit of different styling. That's probably what it's used for most. The div tag I talked about already. Form is something, it's a special tag that the browser kind of picks up on behavior. If you have like inputs inside it, we're not going to get into that tonight. We'll do a lot more of that when you guys do Angular at the end of Unit 1. Unordered lists and ordered lists. Unordered list is literally just like, bullet points, and ordered list is numbers. Both of them are the kind of like outside tags, and then inside them you do list elements. And I'm going to demonstrate all this in a minute. Table is for creating tables. There are other tags that you would use, like TR for rows, and TH is table header. TD is, I don't remember what the D stands for, but it's essentially the cell that you would put across the row. And you guys won't really need to use that until graded assignment 6, I don't think. And then the heading levels, there's H1 through H6, and H1 is the biggest and H6 is the smallest. But it kind of automatically makes it bold and gives it a little extra spacing. The browser interprets it in a way that like automatically gives you, a big bold look. So it's super useful, and that's been around since the beginning. That is not new. Okay, so let's go back over to VS Code here. And I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to pull this here like this. And we're going to go over to the index.html page. And then I'm going to do something. Okay, so in VS Code, and you guys are going to be learning a lot about this, but the extension section here, you can actually like get some cool stuff that helps you with your coding. There's this thing called Live Server that I'm a big fan of, because it lets you like actually see your updates live in the browser as you're working on something. And so we're going to use that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to right click on this file and say open with Live Server. And it's going to, yes, open up the page. And you'll notice that it's, very boring because I have zero styling in it, but that's okay because we're not here to talk about styling tonight. We are here to talk about the HTML, just getting the content on the page, just the words, and, perhaps links or whatever. So I've got this page. You can see this, you don't absolutely have to have this, but it's automatic when you, usually when you create like the bare bones of a page in VS Code. But you see the HTML tags are, and notice when I do this, that it's got the bottom one highlighted. So you can kind of see the opening and closing together, right? And then from here to here is the body. From here to here is the head. Those are the ones I told you that are required, right? And even though the body and the head are nested inside HTML, you don't typically indent them like you do everything else. These are kind of the only ones that you typically just don't see indented. But otherwise, if you have stuff that's nested inside other elements, like for example, I've got this title that's nested inside, the opening and closing tags of head, you would indent it to represent that it's one level down and it's nested. So you're going to want to be very vigilant about your indenting because it will help you make sense of this and, help you kind of keep the structure of it straight. Otherwise, it gets really hard to read and really confusing really fast. So I've got inside my body, I've got a header, I've got a footer down here that currently has absolutely nothing. And then I've got two sections in the middle that are just kind of like a bunch of information that's going to be related. So the header, I'm using an H2, so it's not the biggest. I can change it to an H1 and we should be able to watch it get bigger. Yep. And then down here for these smaller headers, I've used an H4. And really an H4 usually is just like bolding and giving a little extra space under the same font size as like the base font size. You kind of would have to like go up to an H3 to make it a little bit bigger, but yeah, you can see it's a little bit bigger, marginally, not a ton. Okay, so let's practice some of this. Let's create an ordered list inside the favorite Marvel movies. Okay, so people tell me your favorite Marvel movies, and we're going to set this up. I'm going to do an ordered list, so OL. And Aisha?
Yeah, why am I having a brain fart? Star-Lord.
Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Thank you, yes.
1 or 2?
We'll go with 2.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I agree. I rewatched
Black Panther.
Say it again.
Black Panther.
Black Panther, of course, it's the best. Okay, I'm super excited about the new one.
I'm going to see it for my birthday. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Okay, give me
Iron
another one.
Man.
Iron Man, the original.
Of
Okay.
course.
Yeah. I go back and forth about whether Iron Man 1 or 3 are my favorites, though. Okay, give me another one.
Thor
Endgame.
Ragnarok.
Yes, that's a great one.
That was good.
Gotta make sure I spell that right. Ragnarok. Okay. All right. So that's good. We've got 4 of them. So that's an ordered list, and you'll notice that they're all showing up over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So let's do an unordered list. Now we'll go into the TV shows. And I'm going to do UL for unordered list. And then I'll do list item. So give me a TV show.
Loki.
Yes, love Loki. It's been so long and I'm so excited about the next season. Okay. Next.
WandaVision.
She-Hulk. That's a good one too.
What was the other one?
She-Hulk.
Yes, I have enjoyed that. It's been trippy and fun, and yeah, it's been good. She's got great personality. Okay, one more.
Werewolf by Night.
I haven't watched that, but I saw it on the Disney Channel. Okay, so Werewolf by Night. All right, so we've got this, and now you can see, over here we've got, these are just bullet points, right? So that's an unordered list. And this stuff is used every day on websites everywhere. When we get to Angular, you're going to learn ways to actually like loop through data and have it automatically create all these, so you don't have to hard code them line by line. But right now we are doing basic HTML. It is coding from scratch. You just need to do them line by line and just keep them organized. So you notice how I kept indenting, right? Okay. And then down here, we could do like some copyright and contact information. There's a tag that I didn't mention called small that will kind of like make the, I don't know if it's like 90% or what it is, but it makes the text a little bit smaller, and it's commonly used for things like this. And also HTML entities. So this is a way to do symbols that's kind of like coded. So I can do and copy like that with a semicolon on the end. And you'll notice it's, VS Code is helping me here. It's telling me it's a character entity representing the copyright symbol. So if I do that here, it's and copy, semicolon. But over here, you can see that little copyright popping up on the page. So I could do that and say, 2022, and I'll put my, full name, very formal. And then maybe we have another line, that says, contact me at, and I can have like a fake email address. And I'm trying to see, do we want to, I'm just going to put it in hard code it. Okay. So, yeah. Carrie loves Marvel at marvelfanatic.com. I'm really not a fanatic, but I do very much enjoy it and I watch everything. Okay. Multiple times. Maybe I am a fanatic. Okay. So, yeah. So, and you can kind of see now, notice that even though I put these on separate lines, they are on one line here. Small is not the type of tag that actually is like a paragraph. So if I want to actually make sure these are going to be on other lines, then I actually need to enclose them in a paragraph. And you can do that. Paragraphs are interesting. You can do it like this and like, move this up inside like this and, have it like this. And if you had like a bunch of attributes in here, like when we learn about styling, maybe you would have attributes in here. It makes sense to do this. You can also sometimes with something like this, get away with just, and VS Code will do that, but I'm going to overwrite it. And yeah, there we go. It detects when like something needs to be balanced and automatically knows what it is. So, but sometimes it gets away from you and then it'll think that it's smarter than you. And so you have to kind of keep an eye on that. So now you can see that it's put it on separate lines. Well, maybe that isn't what I wanted. Maybe I didn't want all that space, right? So maybe instead I take out the closing and the opening tags there so that this is all one thing, but it's still on one line. So this is where the break tag comes in. And BR is one that actually can be self-closing. So you'll see it like this. I believe these days it works both ways. When they were doing transitional HTML, it was called XHTML. Like in the early 2000s, they made a really big deal about like doing this, but I'm pretty sure it still works both ways. But yes, so now you can see that they, have the single line spacing, one's after the other, because it's just a soft return with just that break instead of having that extra space because of having separate paragraph tags. Does that make sense? So those are some other things you can do. I could actually like, put this in bold just to, and there again. Oh my goodness. Okay. And now, yeah, that part's in bold. Mina, you have a question?
Here, which is an attribute in this example?
The only attribute I've got right now is the language equals EN. But what if we were to put an image in here? So let's go to marvel.com. And I'm just going to, take a screenshot from their page. And by the way, it's fair to note, be careful about stealing other people's images. Maybe a better way for me to do this would be to actually just highlight the page. And that way it's like not me just stealing one of their images. Okay, so I can put that, I'm going to find the right screenshot. Bear with me for a second. Oh, it took a second to show up. All right, I'm going to cheat because we're low on time. I'm not going to use the terminal. I mean, it's not really cheating, but I'm going to put that there. And I actually meant for it to go in here. So I'm going to move it in there. Okay, so now I've got this. I can rename it and do Marvel sites.png. And you can see there's the picture, right? So I can actually, because this is right here in the same directory, I'll be able to use a relative reference. And let's have welcome to my Marvel fan page. Okay. Let's maybe just do another section here. Yeah. And I'll say visit the, and then I'm going to do a link. And we'll do attributes for that. Visit the Marvel website for lots of great content. Sure. Okay. So with the A tag, the absolute bare minimum that you have to have is an href. So this is the URL reference that it tells it where to send you if you click on the link. And so you hit equals. Usually you don't put spaces around the equals when you're doing these, you keep them tight. That's pretty common. And then I can come over here and just, grab the base URL there and just put that in there. And it has to be in quotes. But that will actually set it to where the link will go there. And I actually did not intend for this to be here. I want it to go on the other side of Marvel website. And then the sentence should continue after that. So let's check our page. Yeah. So now you can see we have the classic browser purple for a visited link. This is real exciting, guys. It's looking like 1995 up in here. All right. And if I click on this, it goes to that page. Now here's something fun. Another attribute that you can add, and I learned about this way back then too, and I always use it, is target. And you can use, and I think it's underscore blank. Am I remembering that correctly? It's been a while. Yes, and it opens it in a new tab. That's really nice if you don't want people to actually like navigate away from your website, your web page, and you want to open something in a new tab. Just do target equals underscore blank like that. Okay, and then right below that, and I really, should have put that in a P. So let's grab that, and I'm going to close it like that. And then on the next line, I will do an image. And images actually are self-closing, but you have to have a source. You have to tell it where to go. In this case, I'm going to go in the same directory. So it's just like you do when you're importing files in a module. You're doing a relative reference and you're saying, I'm in the same directory. So, // and VS Code is saying, oh, here's your options. And so I can just like go right there and just choose it. And now you see the image appears on the page. And if I wanted to control like its size, I could control it with like, width equals, 500. And actually you can do it in quotes. I think you can even do it without quotes, but that's pixels by default. I think I might be able to do it like this too, maybe. Yeah. We're going to get into this, the syntax for styling. This is actually, still the browser's interpreting this. It has nothing to do with styling. That would be different. But it's one of the ways you can control some things like this because the image tag actually has that attribute built in. You can go to like W3 schools and places like that to learn more about all of these tags, what their attributes are. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with things that are built in, but you kind of have to go to the documentation and learn more about it. You guys are going to be doing a fun little website for yourselves for graded assignment 4, and that's a great time to play around with all of that. Okay, it is just past 6:30 and I still need to talk about Git a little bit, so I'm going to move on. But hopefully this just gives you an initial kind of look at how you take a simple file with some simple tags and put some content on a page, even if it looks like 1995. But next week we will talk about styling, and we're going to get things looking a lot more modern with that. Okay, let's get back to here. All right, introduction to Git, version control system. So we'll talk about what is version control and the basics of Git. So version control is a way for you to track changes over time. And basically you're able to kind of record different versions of the code, and then you can revisit them if you need to. You can combine them together. This little graphic here kind of gives you a good example of how it's used professionally. Like you have a main branch. You might also see this called master. That was the old term for it. Pretty much everybody's using main these days. But the idea there is this is the code that is the final code that isn't broken. We don't want it to ever be broken. We want it to work. And then we develop in other branches and we create new features and play around. And maybe we even have a branch that's just a proof of concept or something, and it's never going to get merged in, but we just, and you branch off of things and then you can merge them back in when you're ready for them. And then eventually they would end up back in main when you want it to be included in your final code. So this is, pretty much how this works. You do not need to know right now how to do all this branching and stuff. So don't get freaked out. We're going to teach you all of that. But for today, we are going to just talk about the basics. Git is the most widely used version control system. There are others out there, but this is what we'll do. And a repository is what it's called when you create a way to encapsulate the code that you want to track. And each repository then has its own Git file that manages all the different versions of your code. So yeah, so don't worry about branches and merging yet. Tonight, we're going to talk about Git basics. So the essential commands you need to know are how to create a repository, and you do that with git init. A commit is just a snapshot of the version you have right now that represents all the changes you've made since the last commit. You want to make commits often. You want to make small changes and commit them, small changes and commit them, because maybe something goes horribly wrong and you need to roll it back, right? And you don't want to lose everything. You only want to change, you only want to roll back one little bit. So I can't stress that enough. Make commits often. Once you guys start doing this, which you will, relatively soon. So to commit, you use the following process. First, you use git status to check which files need to be staged. If they're unstaged, they'll be in red. Staging just means that you tell it, these are the ones I want to be included in this commit. So there's two ways to kind of do this. You can do git add and then name your files that you want to add, or you can do git add dot, and that will stage everything. But you want to be careful because sometimes you might want to put some files in one commit and other files in another commit because you realized, oh crap, I forgot to make commits very often, and now I need to break this up a little bit. Or you might have other reasons for doing it, but that's a common one. And then usually it's a good idea to do git status one more time, and then you can actually see everything that's been staged will be in green, and anything that is still unstaged that won't be included in the commit will be in red still. And then you can use git commit -m. The -m flag just says, I'm going to throw a message on this, and it's a very good idea. There are other ways to do commits, but this is the way we will train you to do it, and it's the way it's commonly done. I've only worked one place where they had me do it differently than this. So yeah, and then you just put the message in double quotes, and you just describe what changes you made. I tend to use, people have different ways of doing it. I tend to start with a verb, and I usually do it past tense. Some people do it present tense. But I might say added a header to the such and such page, or changed the styling of the footer. Something real basic like that just describes exactly what you did in that commit. Because that way later you can use git log to look at a list of commits, and you will be able to kind of tell immediately which one is which. Okay. I don't want to go into too much of this too fast because there's a lot more to talk about, but I can very quickly demonstrate this for you. And I'm going to go into VS Code, I think, to do this. So, all right. So if I do Command J, pull up my terminal, I'm going to go back one directory for lecture examples, and I'm going to actually, do I want to do that? I changed my mind. I'm going to go back to class 12. And I'm going to create a directory here. So mkdir, and I'm going to call it get example. That'll be my directory. And you can see now it's just showed up here, just doesn't have anything in it yet. And so I'm going to navigate into that now. And that's something to remember. You might create a directory, but you're not in it yet. So then you have to go into it. And then let's see, I want to create a file. So I do, touch index.html. And maybe it's, I'm creating a page in this directory called index.html. And so now I have a file that I want to be able to track. So I can actually spin up a Git repository, and I'm doing it in the directory get example. And this is exactly where I want to do it. Anything that's inside this folder is going to be tracked. If I were to put it in class 12, it would include all these files out here, but they have nothing to do with this particular little project that I'm doing. This is very important, and everybody eventually, at least once, screws up and puts their Git repository in the wrong place. So I want to make sure to mention this now. Make sure you're in the right directory before you do it. But once you do, you just do git and init, and then it'll say initialized empty Git repository, and it gives me the whole path of exactly where it is. And you can see that it's referencing this file .git. If I just list everything, all you see is index.html, right? It's because it's hidden. So I can actually go, I have these aliases. There we go. I forget which one it is, but ls dash, is it FLA? Yeah. You can use these flags to like display other information, and it'll actually like show you the hidden files as well. And you can see that it's a hidden file. So it's there. It doesn't look like it's there, but it's there. And so now we have a way of tracking it. So I can go into this file now, and I can actually, I'm going to use this emit, gives me these like starting points. I'm going to do this, and it's like, boom, here's a starter HTML file for you. And we don't need to worry about the meta stuff today because you guys don't know about that. And I'm going to go and say, get example page. And now I've added a title. So I'm going to say, you know, get status. And there we see in red, we have index.html because it's not tracked yet. And it tells you that it's untracked. So I'm gonna move this up so we can see a little more of what's going on here. So I'm going to say I want to add, and because it's the only file, I'm just gonna say, you know, add dot, and that'll include it. And now if I do get status again, it says changes to be committed, and it says new file index.html, and it's in green. That tells me it successfully staged it. So now I can do my commit. So I'm going to do git commit -m, lowercase. And then I'm going to say created index file and added title. And that's a nice, you know, succinct message that says exactly what I did on that commit. So now I go and I, you know, make another change, and maybe now I, you know, add a header, and I say, this is my example page. And of course, if I'm developing, I also am paying attention to what this actually looks like so that I am not committing things that are broken. And it does, it looks like what I want, except for I'm just like, oh, that's not what I meant to do. I actually wanted this to be, you know, a big header. So we're going to do an H1. I'm going to pull that out here. I'm going to push this down here. And VS Code is very nicely managing my indents for me. It's better at that than Replit is. Okay, and now it looks like how I expected it to look. So I'm doing this, you know, reality check over here, right? Let me change this so it's not there. Yeah, that'll be easier. Okay. So now I've made another change, and I've added a header. So and you know, most of the time your changes are not going to be one line of code, but I'm just demonstrating this. Okay. So same thing, I'm going to do a get status, and it shows me that index.html has now been modified. It has changes. So I'll do get add and add it, get status. It's now staged. And you'll notice right here, it tells you that if you made a mistake and you staged a file you didn't mean to, there's a way to unstage it, and it tells you how to do it right there. I've done that a number of times. Okay. So now I can commit it. And this time I'm going to say added, you know, header. That really doesn't need to be, yeah, header with page title. And now I've done that. And then, you know, maybe I have a big section on my page, and I'm going to have, you know, some sort of lorem ipsum. That's another little thing I've got installed. It's very handy. And so we have some lorem ipsum text. And so now I have, added some content, and, maybe I can do a little more. I can do like an H3 and say, blah, 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 because I'm not being creative at the moment. And, maybe I have another paragraph of lorem. Okay. So, more changes. So get status, it tells me it's changed. I'll add it. I'll verify it. And verifying seems tedious when you're only working with a single file. I realize that, but it's a good habit to get into, because when you're working with multiple files, you are absolutely going to 100% want to check and make sure that you are only committing the files you meant to. And that would be where you actually name them instead of using the dot. So now I'll commit it and say, added the blah, blah, blah section. And that'll do it. So now I can do git log, and I can see evidence of all these commits that I've made. Oh, there is just the 3, right? And you can see that each one has what's called a hash that identifies it against any other commit. And it, has the descriptions right there. So it tells me which one is which. And that is all we're going to cover tonight, because there's a lot more to talk about, but we don't need to do that tonight. So let's get you guys off to your studio. Make sure I've got this back. All right. Tonight's studio, chapter 20, making headlines, this is called. You are going to use the browser developer tools, and specifically you're going to use the Firefox tools to edit any website of your choosing. Have fun, change text, change photos, change anything you want. The instructions will be in the studio on how to do all of that. And then take a screenshot of your finished product and share it in the headlines channel, which I have not created, but I'm going to go create it right now. And that way everybody can see your fun page once you get done changing it up. Mina?
Can we change any photo or text in someone's website? Is it possible?
Well, it's not gonna save it to their database or anything. All it's doing is giving you a way to try it out in the browser. So any changes you make are temporary. And if you click on a link, navigate it away from that page, close it, whatever, your changes are gone. So be very careful to only change. Okay, so let me get Firefox up here and I'll just demonstrate. Okay, so here we go. I'm on the New York Times website. Here's the dev tools. I can click through here and you can kind of see, what it is I'm looking at, right? Is being highlighted. And if this photo is actually a link. So if I click on this, I'm going to navigate away. And if I have changed, text on here, like, let me find, that'll work. But I want the actual, that's the H3. Okay. So I just need to open up what the text is. And I can say, Gateway Arch is beautiful in autumn, because that's better news. And it updates it on the page. It doesn't change their website, but it changes what you're looking at in the browser. So this is a great way to play around and kind of see, what changes in the HTML make a difference on the page. So you can come through here, you can change, like if I wanted to see that image, I would have to find it without clicking on it. But let's see, I could probably, this is a complex page. You might want to find something simpler that doesn't have so much stuff to navigate, but there it is. That's the right div. Okay. So you can see that it's got the link, and then inside the link is a div, and there's the caption. So this is probably the picture. Yep. Image, there it is. So this source right here is what you would want to actually change, and you could reference some picture that you've got on your desktop or something, right? So you could have some fun with this and really change something up on any website you want. Keep it, you know, appropriate. Don't get into anything controversial or, you know, unkind. It's most people try to make it funny if they want to, you know, but, you know, be nice. So,
Thanks. Kate.
yeah, but this is kind of what you're going to do, and it'll explain more in here. It'll kind of, you know, help you get an idea of what you can do. Okay, so let's see. Why don't we come back here at 8:15, because it will not take me long to kind of do what I'm going to do.